Money is uniquely linked to our hearts. One of his central insights is that our heart follows our money. Jesus isn't asking how much do you have. He's asking where do you put your hope? In whom do you put your trust? Jesus spoke a lot about money. In fact, money and possessions was the second most spoken about thing by Jesus. He taught on it the second most. The first was the kingdom, and we touched on that a few weeks ago. And no matter what your economic status is this morning as you've come into this room, money affects us all. And so we are going to be hearing a lot about money in this series. And it may make us a little uncomfortable. There's a reason for that. It's because it gets right to our hearts. And so if I went out to the streets of Prescott and I interviewed some people walking by and I asked them, what matters most in your life? I'm sure I'd hear some really noble, good things. Things like life, liberty, the pursuit of happiness, family, health, friends, justice, community, purpose, and the list goes on. All these wonderful, noble things. But I wonder if I then asked them to show me their bank statement and to show me their calendar as well. Super inappropriate, I know. But I wonder how accurately these things will reflect what they've said they prioritize, what they said matters most. There could be a difference between what we think we prioritize and what matters most to us and what we actually do prioritize in our lives and what we practice in our lives. And so it turns out that many of the things that we think will make us happy, kind of the good life, the definition of the good life, actually are not found in the places we expect them to be found. And the older I've gotten, the more I've realized that the things we think will make us happy are not the things that will make us happy. And this is why Jesus regularly made bold claims that turned the vision of that good life up on its head. He said things like, the last will be first and the first will be last. Direct switch. Those who exalt themselves will be humbled, and those who humble themselves will be exalted. These are shocking things to hear, particularly when thinking about the culture of the world around us. And he says, bless those who curse you. Wow. I love those punctuations. I'm not going to say it again. It might happen again. Love your enemies even. Love your enemies. That's so weird to the world around us. But one of the most kind of counterintuitive things that Jesus taught goes against everything that our heart desires, everything that we hear, and the leaning of our hearts. It kind of goes against what we think is natural to us. And that's his teaching on money and his teaching on generosity. In Acts 20, verse 35, Jesus is quoted as saying, it is more blessed to give than to receive. Again, just switching it on its head. And the word translated to blessed here is from the Greek makarios. And it means happy, fortunate, and well off. In another translation, it says there is more happiness in giving than in receiving. And you might be thinking to yourself, that sounds really holy and noble. That's great. That would be nice. But how is that really the case? How is happiness found in giving and not receiving? Think about the most generous person that you know. Are they happy? Are they generally happy people? For me, if I think back on my life and the most generous people I've experienced, yes, they are. Generous people are actually scientifically proven to be happier, to be actually wealthier, to have lower levels of depression and anxiety. They're more interested in personal growth. They have better relationships. They have a higher life expectancy. Interesting. And according to one study, they laugh a lot more than everyone else. This is true across every demographic, no matter what someone's socioeconomic status is. In a recent study across 120 of 136 nations, it says that spending money on others or giving to charities was positively associated with higher self-reported happiness. There's a lot of research out there that just confirms what Jesus was saying all along. And I love it when science finally catches up to what our Creator says, what is good for us. So looking at this, it's clear that the Western kind of formula, more money equals more happiness, is just simply not true. Rather, it's Jesus' formula of more generosity equals more happiness that brings the pathway to a happy life. And so a key part of our apprenticeship to Jesus as we follow him as his disciples is discovering the joy of living that generous life. But there's a gap between where we stand now and what that looks like, and it's a challenge. Let's get to our passage for today and see what Jesus said about all of this. In Matthew 6, we're going to read from verse 19. It says, "Don't collect for yourselves treasures on earth where moth and rust destroy and where thieves break in and steal. But collect for yourselves treasures in heaven where neither moth nor rust destroys and where thieves don't break in and steal. For where your treasure is, there your heart will be also. The eye is the lamp of the body. If your eye is good, your whole body will be full of light. But if your eye is bad, your whole body will be full of darkness." This is an interesting one. "So if the light within you is darkness, how deep is that darkness? No one can be a slave of two masters, since either he will hate one and love the other, or be devoted to one and despise the other. You cannot be slaves of God and of money." And so as I've been speaking about money already this morning, what are some of the feelings and thoughts that are going through your heads and hearts? Maybe it's anxiety. Maybe it's frustration. How can you be generous when you're just not even making ends meet every month? Maybe it's insufficiency. Maybe it's anger because you look over the fence and you see that others have way more than you. Maybe you're convicted because you do have enough or you have more than enough. Or maybe it's just not an issue for you. Matthew 6:19 through 24 covers three things that are worth noting, and we're going to go through those today. And the first is your treasure. Where do we put our hope and our trust? I'm going to read it for you. "Don't collect for yourselves treasures on earth where moth and rust destroy and where thieves break in and steal. But collect for yourselves treasures in heaven where neither moth nor rust destroys and where thieves don't break in and steal. And this is the kicker. For where your treasure is, there your heart will be also." What we store up reveals where we look for security and safety. What we store up reveals what we truly value in life. And what we store up reveals what we desire, what our hearts actually desire. Remember that the Sermon on the Mount was mostly about the move from obeying God's law in actions only, like the Pharisees did, to obeying God in your heart. And so Jesus is looking at the state of our hearts in this. He highlights that money is uniquely linked to our hearts. One of his central insights is that our heart follows our money. Jesus isn't asking, how much do you have? He's asking, where do you put your hope? In whom do you put your trust?